So, imagine returning your rental car at the end of your trip in Iceland and finding out that you owe hundreds of dollars in fines. Or what about the cases where people end up paying thousands of dollars in fines for the damages on the car that the insurance doesn't cover? And that's why in this video we are going to go through a couple of things that you really need to be careful about so you won't end up in a situation like this. And so yeah, let's first start with the least expensive car fees on the list and then slowly move up the ladder to those insane numbers that I mentioned in the beginning. First, here we have a tunnel toll. As of 2024, there is only one paid tunnel in Iceland. It's called Vallaheidi and we can find it located right next to town Akureyri in North Iceland. This tunnel is about 7 kilometers long and you can expect to pay 1,990 kronas to cross it. That's at least if you pay it yourself online at the website of tunnel.is. And if you don't, the total price is 2,540 kronas and the charge will basically go directly to your car rental company that you will have to pay at the end of your trip. Plus on top of it there may also be some small service fee from the rental company. If you want to avoid paying for the tunnel completely, you can always drive across the mountain pass, which actually offers some nice views too. Just keep in mind that even though this is a paved road, it often becomes impassable in the winter, and so you definitely want to check the road conditions on the website of road.is first. The next on the list we have paid parking, which in Iceland we can basically divide into two categories. The first one is paid city parking, and luckily in Iceland we only have two places on the island where these exist. One of them is the downtown of the capital city Reykjavik, and the other one is downtown of town Akureyri. As of now, the parking fee is between 220 and 600 kronas per hour, depending on the zone. And you can basically see all the paid zones and pay for the parking by using your phone, and there are basically two apps that I always recommend people downloading before the trip. The first one is called Parka and the second one is called Easy Park. In case you get a ticket for parking in a paid zone or you exceed the time limit, you can expect to be charged some 4,500 kronas. For the parking violations like parking at the sidewalk or parking in the direction of incoming traffic, you can expect the fees around 10,000 kronas, and then 20,000 kronas for violations like parking in the handicapped spaces. And again, this is something that I always recommend paying right away, because if you don't, the parking ticket will be basically sent directly to your rental company, which means that they will have to pay for it, and that means that they'll also add like 3,000 to 6,000 kronas as a handling fee on top of that. And the second type of paid parking in Iceland are the ones that are located usually by the most popular attractions around the island. The list of these places has been unfortunately growing quite rapidly in recent years. And even though it usually isn't too expensive, it sure can add up in the end. This kind of parking will cost you from 600 to 12 to 1500 kronas. And same as with the city parking, it's best to pay for it using your phone and using the apps that I mentioned. And again, it's best to pay for it straight away, because some of these places are known to charge even like up to 5,000 kronas if you fail to pay upon arrival. And if you are using my guide, to save you some time and headache, I always mention how much the parking is and how and where to pay for it. But I also put together a list of all those places that you can download for free. Just look for the links at the description of this video. Alright, now we are moving to some more expensive fines, and let's begin with speeding tickets. And there are basically only two ways that you can get caught speeding in Iceland, but I can guarantee you they both hurt. The first one is by police car, and the way that they measure the speed is usually when driving in the opposite direction, and sometimes they are also just simply pulled over by the side of the road. And to be honest, I don't really have any experience with police cars hiding behind a corner or at some sneaky places where you cannot see them. Also, they are probably not measuring the speed here as often as, for example, at some other places around the world. But still, if you get caught, you should be prepared for some hefty fines. For example, if you drive 120 km per hour on the main road, where the speed limit is 90, you will be fined 80,000 kronas. But if you can pay the fine right away when you get pulled over, the fine will be lowered by 20%. I've only been stopped here for speeding once in Iceland, and I got pretty lucky because the police officer let me go with just a warning. The good thing is that the policemen here are usually pretty nice, at least compared to some other places in the world, but still it's something that I wouldn't really count on. Another way that you can be fined for speeding is if you get caught by the camera. They are usually placed in the cities, but there is also a couple of them by the main road and in the tunnels. And these charges can be sometimes even more expensive, because basically they'll go through your rental company, and the rental company will again add its handling fee on top of that. And I would say be especially careful about the tunnels, because the first time I drove here through the tunnel, I didn't realize that there was a limit of 70 kilometers per hour, and I believe I drove 90 and was fined something over 40,000 kronas. And so basically you will just really want to be sticking to the speed limits here. And that's especially in the cities, like I mentioned, tunnels, but also places like one-lane bridges and so on. Personally, I really try to never drive more than 10 kilometers per hour over the speed limit, and that's honestly mainly because of the safety. Even though sometimes all those long stretches of the road can be very tempting to just floor it. There are often many unexpected traps like very uneven road, potholes, gravel sections, sheeps on the road, blind angles, and I don't even mention all the tricky situations when driving here in the winter. But that is a whole separate video which you can check out later on my channel. And if you think that the speeding tickets here are just way too high, just wait till you see the fines for off-road driving. When you come to Iceland, at many places it will look like you can literally drive anywhere. And actually many people get tempted to go off-road to take photos with their car in the open black sand areas. And some even take it even further, like doing donuts in the sand and so on. But what they don't realize is that both of these examples are completely illegal. If you got caught, you can get fined up to 100,000 kronas per passenger. But in the cases where a lot of damage is done, you can expect to pay even up to 350,000 kronas. And it can basically just go up from there, just depending on the extent of the damage and the area where it occurred. And if you search through the internet, you can find news articles reporting on many different incidents where people ended up paying anywhere from 400,000 up to 1.4 million kronas for off-road driving. And so be very careful, because basically even if you are, for example, just parking by the road and let's say you are leaving deep tracks in the soil or sand, that in some cases could be also considered to be an off-road driving. Unfortunately, it just seems that not many people really realize that off-road driving in Iceland is illegal, or maybe they know about it but they simply ignore that. And of course, the chances of you getting caught might seem like not very high. But all it really takes is someone taking a photo of your license plate and reporting it to the police. Which is something that more and more locals are now doing, as they are simply just tired of seeing their land being damaged by irresponsible people. Alright, so let's be honest, all that obviously a lot of money, but honestly it is still nothing compared to what you would have to pay if you damage the rental car in the scenario where the insurance doesn't apply. I mean, just imagine having to pay 2.8 million kronas for the damage on the rental car, like this person on Reddit talks about. But now if we look at the website of Blue Car Rental, we can see that there are many kinds of insurance. Some of them are included, some you will have to purchase separately, and they will basically lower your liability to a certain amount. What you could also do though is to pay for so-called liability waiver, which will essentially take your liability down to zero. That person on Reddit that we mentioned, he basically did the same mistake that so many people here do every year. And the mistake is that he just didn't have the water damage insurance, and he tried to cross the river with the car that wasn't really capable crossing that size of the river. Or maybe he just didn't really know how to cross it properly. And also honestly, the problem is that the water damage and the river crossings, that's something that not many car rental companies in Iceland will insure you for. Which means that if something bad happens and let's say you flood the car, you will have to pay for all the expensive repairs out of your own pocket. Or even in the worst cases, if the damage is just way too much and the car isn't repairable, you might even have to cover the cost of the new car. Blue Car is actually one of few companies in Iceland that have this kind of insurance for their off-road capable cars. And so I would recommend checking them out in case you are planning to drive into highlands and through some of the more challenging routes in general. And I actually have a discount from them that you can use, and again, everything will be in the description of the video. If you have any questions, just ask me in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed this video, then you might enjoy this one too, so I hope to see you there.